The moment my father pointed toward the chair beside the restroom hallway, I knew I had made a mistake by coming. Not because the chair was ugly. Not because the restaurant was crowded. Not because the cold draft from the restroom door kept sliding across the floor every few seconds. It was because of the way he smiled when he said it. "Claire can sit there," he told the hostess. "Easy in, easy out. Fits her life." The table went quiet for half a breath. Then my brother laughed. My sister pressed her fingers against her mouth, but the smile still showed. My mother looked down at her menu like the wine list had suddenly become the most important thing in the room. The hostess froze with the black leather folder against her chest. She was young, maybe 22, and she knew exactly what she had just heard. People always know. Strangers hear cruelty faster than families admit it. I stood there with my coat still over one arm and my purse on my shoulder, watching my father adjust his jacket like he had just made a clever toast. It was his 60th birthday dinner. A private table at one of those expensive downtown Chicago steakhouses where the lights are low, the glasses shine, and people speak softly because money has already done most of the talking for them. I had arrived 10 minutes late from work, still in my black dress and heels, with a birthday card in my purse and a secret arrangement waiting at the manager's desk. Before I walked in, I had planned to pay for the entire dinner. All of it. The wine, the steaks, the desserts, the extra side dishes my brother always ordered and never finished, the birthday candles, the whole polished evening. I had called that afternoon and left my card on file as a surprise. Not because they deserved it, because some part of me still believed that if I gave without making a scene, maybe one day they would see me without needing to be forced. That belief ended beside the restroom hallway. My father looked at the chair again and lifted his chin toward it. "Well," he said, "don't just stand there." My brother Ryan leaned back with that same lazy smirk he had worn since we were kids, and he learned our parents would forgive him faster if he made his cruelty sound like humor. "Come on, Claire," he said. "It's just a seat." My sister Vanessa gave a soft little laugh. "Honestly, it kind of is perfect. You never stay long anyway." There it was. The familiar family rhythm. One person cut. One person laughed. One person softened the knife by calling it a joke. And my mother sat still, hoping my silence would save the evening. For years they had spoken about my life like it was a warning label. I was 31, unmarried, no children, living alone in a condo I paid for myself, working as a senior marketing director at a firm where people actually listen when I spoke. Outside my family, I was respected. Inside it, I was treated like a half-finished woman. At Thanksgiving, my mother would ask if my apartment felt lonely. At Christmas, Vanessa would say she could not imagine coming home to silence every night. Ryan liked to joke that I had corporate money and no real life. My father never said as much, but his eyes always did. To him, success only counted when it came with a husband, a house in the suburbs, and children he could brag about at church. My life did not fit his picture. So he gave me the chair that matched his opinion. By the bathroom. Out of the way. Close enough to be counted, but not close enough to be honored. For one second I almost sat down. That was the old reflex in me. The trained part. The part that knew how to smile through small humiliations because making the table uncomfortable was treated as a bigger crime than hurting me in the first place. I could already hear what they would say later. "You're too sensitive. Nobody meant it like that. Why do you always make things hard?" It was Dad's birthday. I looked at the empty chair. A waiter passed behind it carrying 2 plates, close enough that his sleeve nearly brushed the backrest. The restroom door opened. Cold air moved across my ankles. Somewhere behind me, someone laughed at another table. Then I looked at my father. Not at the chair. At him. His smile faded a little when he saw my face. I was not crying. I was not shaking. I was not embarrassed anymore. I was done. I turned first to the hostess. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I won't be needing that seat." Her eyes moved from me to my family, then back again. She gave a small nod, almost like she understood more than she was allowed to say. My mother finally looked up. "Claire," she whispered. "Don't start." That word almost made me laugh. Start. As if I had been the one who began this. Ryan sat forward. "You're seriously doing this right now?" Vanessa's smile had vanished. She hated conflict unless she was controlling it. My father gave a short, dry laugh. Sit down. You're making yourself look foolish. I placed the birthday card from my purse onto the table. I had not signed it with anything dramatic. Just happy birthday, Dad. Love, Claire. It looked almost innocent sitting there between the wine glasses. Then I met his eyes. Enjoy your dinner, I said. I did not raise my voice. I did not explain. I did not give them a speech they could call hysterical later. I simply turned and walked away. I heard my mother say my name once. Then Ryan louder. Then my father's voice, sharp enough to cut through the restaurant. Claire. I kept walking. Past the bar. Past the hostess stand. Past the mirrors and polished wood and people pretending not to watch. The second I stepped outside, the Chicago cold hit my face so hard it felt like a slap from the sky. But it was clean. That was the strange part. The cold felt cleaner than the room I had just left. I got into my car and sat there with both hands on the steering wheel. My phone was still dark. For maybe 30 seconds, there was only my breathing and the fog slowly forming on the windshield. Then the first call came. Mom. I watched her name light up and disappear. Then Ryan. Then Vanessa. Then Mom again. I started the car and drove away before I could do something foolish, like answer and let them pull me back into the same old performance. I did not go home. Home was too quiet for the anger sitting inside my ribs. Instead, I drove west to a small cafe tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. The kind of place where nobody cared about family image or expensive coats. I had gone there for years after hard work days, after difficult meetings, after holidays where I left my parents' house feeling smaller than when I arrived. The woman behind the counter knew my order. Rough night, she asked. I gave her a tired smile. Something like that. I took my coffee to the window seat. Outside, headlights moved through thin falling snow. Inside, the cafe smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso, and for the first time all night, no one was asking me to shrink. Then the text started. Where did you go? Are you serious? Dad is furious. Mom is upset. You embarrassed everyone. I read each one without answering. Not one of them asked if I was okay. Not one said what he did was cruel. Not one said you should not have been treated that way. That told me everything. To them, the problem was not the insult. The problem was that I had refused to absorb it. Vanessa wrote next. You really walked out over a chair? A chair. I stared at the word until it stopped looking real. That was how families like mine survived their own behavior. They reduced the wound to an object. A chair. A joke. A comment. A misunderstanding. But it had never been just a chair. It was every birthday where I was seated near the end because couples needed the real spaces. Every holiday photo where someone told me to move so the grandchildren could be centered. Every time my mother said, "You'll understand when you have a family," as if I had been born without one. My phone buzzed again. Ryan, come back and stop making this weird. Then another message. The waiter is asking about dessert. Don't be dramatic. I looked down at my coffee. That was when I remembered the card on file. My card. The one waiting behind the scenes like a quiet apology I had planned to give them before they even knew they needed one. The full dinner had not been charged yet. The manager had told me they would run it at the end once the check was ready. It was still only an arrangement. A generous little secret. One phone call could end it. I held my phone for a long moment, watching my family's messages stack up. A younger version of me would have paid anyway. She would have told herself that kindness should not depend on behavior. She would have gone home, cried in the shower, and woken up the next morning to a message from her mother saying, "You know how your father is." That younger version of me had spent years confusing peace with surrender. I was not her anymore. I searched the restaurant number and called. The manager answered after 2 rings. His voice was warm and professional. "Good evening, this is Martin." "Hi, Martin," I said. "This is Claire Dawson. I called earlier about covering the Harrington birthday table." "Yes, Miss Dawson," he said. "Of course. We have your card noted." I looked out at the snow moving past the cafe window. "I need to remove it." There was a small pause. Not judgment. Just understanding. "Certainly," he said. "Would you like me to cancel that authorization completely?" "Yes," I said. "No charges to my card. The table can handle their own bill." "Understood." His voice softened slightly. I'll take care of it now. Thank you. I ended the call and placed the phone face down. No shouting. No revenge speech. No scene. Just a boundary. For 5 full minutes nothing happened. Then my phone exploded. Ryan called first. I declined. Vanessa called next. I declined. My mother called twice. Then the group chat lit up. Ryan, what did you do? Vanessa. Claire, answer your phone. Mom. Please do not make this worse. Ryan, they brought the check. I could almost see it. The silver tray placed at the table. My father reaching for it with the casual confidence of a man who had spent years assuming someone else would soften life for him. My mother smiling nervously. Vanessa leaning close, expecting some neat little surprise. Ryan pretending not to care until he saw the number. They had ordered like people who believed generosity was already waiting for them. Wine. Appetizers. Premium steaks. Extra sides. Birthday dessert. After dinner drinks they had not even finished. And now the bill was real. My father's name finally appeared. If this is your way of making a point, you have gone too far. I read it twice. Gone too far. Not him. Not the chair. Not the laughter. Not the years of treating my independence like a defect while quietly benefiting from it. No. I had gone too far because I removed my money from a table where my dignity had not been welcome. My hand moved toward the empty chair across from me. The envelope was there. I had prepared it earlier that day as part of his birthday gift. At first, it had held a simple card and a printed note saying dinner was covered. Something kind. Something quiet. But after I left the restaurant, before I reached the cafe, I had stopped at a small print shop still open near the corner and changed everything. Now the envelope held 3 pages. The first was a letter. The second was a donation receipt. The third was a list of every financial favor I was ending that night. Not written with anger. Not written with insults. Written like truth. Clean. Plain. Impossible to laugh away. I had already called a courier while waiting for my coffee. He was supposed to arrive at the restaurant within the hour. My phone buzzed again. Mom. Your father is humiliated. I looked at that message for a long time. Then I typed one reply into the group chat. Stay at the table. His real gift is on the way. Nobody answered for almost a minute. Then Vanessa wrote. What does that mean? Ryan sent 3 question marks. My father called again. I let it ring. Across from me, the sealed envelope waited under the warm cafe light. My father's name written across the front in my neat handwriting. For years, they had believed I was the weak one because I kept forgiving them quietly. They were about to learn that silence had not made me powerless. It had only made them careless. 30 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from the courier. Delivered to front desk. I sat very still. I pictured the hostess carrying the envelope to the table. I pictured my mother's face relaxing for one foolish second, thinking I had sent money after all. I pictured Ryan leaning back, relieved. Vanessa whispering that I was dramatic but predictable. And my father, proud as always, opening it in front of everyone because he still believed any gift with his name on it had to be something that honored him. Then my phone lit up again. This time it was not a call. It was a photo from Ryan. A picture of the first page lying open on the table. At the top, in bold black letters, were the words I had written only an hour earlier. This was never about a chair. The photo stayed on my screen while the typing bubbles appeared and disappeared beneath it. For a moment no one said anything. That was how I knew they had started reading. My father would have expected a softer ending. A last-minute rescue. A card with a polite message. Maybe even a quiet apology from me for leaving. Wrapped around a paid bill so everyone could pretend the night had not exposed anything. Instead, the first page told the truth. This was never about a chair. It was about every time I was treated like a guest in my own family because my life did not match the one they wanted to show other people. It was about every joke that carried a judgment. Every silence that protected the person who hurt me. Every dinner where I was useful enough to invite, but not respected enough to defend. I wrote that I had spent too long mistaking endurance for love. I wrote that I had come that night planning to pay for his birthday dinner because I still wanted to believe generosity might soften what pride had hardened. Then I wrote the line I knew would stop him cold. The daughter you placed beside the restroom was the same daughter paying for the celebration you expected to enjoy. My phone rang. Ryan. I declined it. Then Vanessa. Declined. Then my mother. I let it ring until the cafe filled with that small, bright sound, and then it stopped. The second page would be in his hand by then. A donation receipt. The amount was almost the same as the dinner I had planned to cover. Every dollar had gone to a women's housing and career support center in Chicago. I chose it because I wanted the money to land somewhere dignity still meant something. Somewhere a woman rebuilding her life would not be laughed at for standing on her own. Vanessa texted first. This is humiliating. I almost answered, but I stopped myself. That was the old trap. They would throw their panic at me and wait for me to catch it. They would call their shame my cruelty. They would call my boundary a punishment. Then I would explain, defend, soften, apologize. Not tonight. Ryan sent another message. You're seriously doing this in public? I looked at those words and felt no rush to reply. Public had not bothered him when he laughed. Public had not bothered my father when he pointed at the chair. Public had not bothered my mother when she lowered her eyes and let it happen. Public only became a problem when truth sat at the table with them. Then came the third page. I knew the exact moment they reached it because the calls stopped. The silence felt bigger than the noise. That page was not emotional. It was not cruel. It did not shout. It simply listed what was ending. The monthly transfer I had been sending my parents to help with the mortgage. The emergency money Ryan kept needing whenever his temporary problems became expensive. The school and activity fees I had covered for Vanessa when her budget got tight, though she still found time to judge my empty apartment and quiet evenings. The holiday dinners I paid for without letting anyone know. The repair bills, the birthday weekends, the hotel rooms, the small rescues that had piled up until my kindness became part of their planning. At the bottom I had written one sentence. Effective immediately, my financial help is finished. My father called. This time I answered. For a second all I heard was restaurant noise. Low voices. Silverware. Someone laughing at a different table. Unaware that my family's perfect birthday dinner had cracked open in public. Then my father spoke. What have you done? His voice was controlled but thin at the edges. That was new. My father usually sounded like a closed door. I told the truth, I said. You embarrassed me. No, I said. I stopped helping you hide behind me. My mother's voice came through next, shaky and rushed. Claire, please. People are staring. Your father is upset. This is not the place. I looked at the cafe window. Snow stuck to the glass in tiny white lines. That is what you said when he humiliated me, I said. Not with words, but with your silence. She went quiet. My father came back on the line. It was a joke. I closed my eyes for 1 second. There it was again. The family shield. The small word they used to cover anything ugly. Then pay like it was funny, I said. No one answered. I heard Ryan in the background, angry and low. Then Vanessa saying something about the manager. Then my mother telling everyone to calm down, as if calm had ever been the same as right. My father lowered his voice. You are punishing this entire family over one comment. It was never one comment, I said. It was years. The words came out steady, but my hand tightened around the phone. It was every time you made me feel unfinished because I did not get married on your schedule. Every time Ryan mocked my career until he needed money. Every time Vanessa called my life lonely while letting me pay for pieces of hers. Every time Mom asked me to forgive another insult, because keeping peace mattered more than keeping me. My mother made a small sound. Maybe pain. Maybe guilt. Maybe both. I did not stop. I walked into that restaurant ready to give you a gift. You showed me exactly where I stood. So I believed you. My father breathed hard through his nose. You have no idea what this will do to us. That sentence almost broke something open in me. Not because it hurt, because it revealed everything. Even now, he was not asking what his behavior had done to me. He was worried about what my boundary would do to him. I know exactly what it will do, I said. It will make all of you live inside the truth for once. Vanessa took the phone then. Her voice was sharp, but underneath it I heard fear. You can't just cut people off like this. I can, I said. I should have done it sooner. Dad is 60 tonight, she snapped. You picked his birthday? He picked the moment, I said. I only stopped paying for it. That shut her down. Ryan grabbed the phone next. Fine, he said. You made your point. What do you want? An apology. There was that tone again. Like an apology was a coin he could toss at my feet to buy back convenience. No, I said. I want you to stop calling me when your choices become bills. He cursed under his breath. I did not flinch. For years, I had been the family's quiet account. The responsible one. The one with no husband, no children, no real obligations. So my money was treated like extra. If I said no, I was selfish. If I said yes, they barely said thank you. And still, they looked down on the life that made their comfort possible. My father came back one last time. His anger had changed. It was no longer loud enough to feel certain. So that's it, he asked. You're turning your back on your family? I watched a woman outside the cafe pull her coat tighter as she crossed the street alone. She looked cold but steady. No, I said. I'm turning back toward myself. The call went silent. For the first time in my life, none of them knew what to say to me. I ended the call. My coffee had gone cold, but I drank it anyway. By the time I drove home, the city was quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something has already happened and cannot be put back. My phone kept lighting up on the passenger seat, but I no longer felt chased by it. In my condo, I took off my heels and stood in the dark living room for a while. Across the window, Chicago glittered under the snow. My home was not loud. It was not full of children or holiday decorations or a husband calling from another room. But it was mine. Every inch of it had been earned without their permission. I thought that would make me sad. It did not. It made me breathe. The next morning, my mother sent a long message. Most of it was still about the restaurant, the bill, and how terrible the night had felt. But near the end, there was one line that sounded different. I should have said something when he pointed at that chair. I read it 3 times. Then I put the phone down. Not every late truth deserves immediate forgiveness. Sometimes it only deserves to be heard. Ryan did not apologize. He sent a message asking if we could talk like adults about the financial stuff. I did not answer that one at all. Vanessa stayed quiet for 2 days. Then she sent a short text. I was cruel. I knew what Dad meant and I laughed anyway. That one I kept. Not because it fixed everything. It did not. But because it was the first message from her that did not ask for money, peace, or my silence. It only named what had happened. My father waited the longest. Almost a week passed before he called again. I nearly let it go to voicemail. Then I answered, not because I owed him access, but because I wanted to know if he had found the courage to speak without an audience. He did not apologize first. Men like my father often walk around regret like it is a room they are afraid to enter. He asked if I was still angry. I said, no. I'm clear. That seemed to bother him more. Anger would have given him something to argue with. Clarity gave him nothing to control. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I did not know you were helping that much. I looked at the framed photo on my shelf. It was old, from a family picnic years ago. I was standing at the edge of the group, smiling like someone waiting to be invited closer. Yes, I said. You did. His breathing changed. Maybe not the numbers, I said. But you knew I was useful. That was enough for you. He did not defend himself. That was the closest thing to honesty he had given me in years. Then very quietly he said, I should not have said what I said. I waited. The old me would have rushed in to save him from discomfort. It's okay. Don't worry. I know you didn't mean it. But I was done handing out comfort to people who had not earned it. No, I said. You shouldn't have. Another silence. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. For the first time, his voice sounded less like a father giving orders and more like a man looking at damage he could no longer blame on someone else. You start by not asking me to pretend it didn't happen, I said. And you stop treating respect like something I have to earn by being useful. He did not answer right away. Then he said, I understand. I was not sure he fully did. But I knew he understood one thing clearly. The old arrangement was over. In the weeks that followed, my family changed because they had to. My parents met with a financial advisor instead of calling me. Ryan stopped sending emergency messages that ended with his bank details. Vanessa sent me a real apology, not perfect, not dramatic, but honest enough that I believed she had finally looked at herself without makeup on the truth. I did not rush back into Sunday dinners. I did not rescue anyone from the discomfort they had earned. But I also did not hate them. That surprised me most. Boundaries had not made me bitter. They made me peaceful. There is a kind of love that only works when one person stays small. I had lived inside that kind of love for years. I had folded myself into silence, softened my success, laughed at jokes that bruised me, and paid for people who treated my independence like a flaw. I thought that was loyalty. It was not. It was disappearance. The night of my father's birthday, I did not destroy my family. I only stopped funding the version of it that required me to accept disrespect as the price of belonging. And once I stopped paying that price, I finally saw myself clearly. I was not unfinished. I was not selfish. I was not difficult because I wanted dignity. I was a woman who had built a life with her own hands, and that life deserved to be honored, even if the people who should have honored it first were the last to understand. A month later, I walked past that same steakhouse on my way to a client dinner. The windows glowed gold against the winter street. For a second, I could almost see the table again. The chair near the restroom. My father's smile. My siblings laughing. My mother's eyes dropping to the menu. But the memory did not pull me under. It passed through me like cold air through an open door. Then it was gone. I kept walking. At the corner, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. Family dinner this Sunday. Only if you want to come. No pressure. I looked at the words for a long time. No pressure. It was a small sentence, but it was new. I did not answer right away. I slipped the phone back into my coat pocket and crossed the street when the light changed. Maybe one day I would sit at a table with them again. Maybe I would not. But if I did, it would not be in the chair they chose to remind me of my place. It would be in a place I chose for myself. Because family is not supposed to be a room where you earn respect by swallowing pain. Love is not proven by how much disrespect you can survive. And kindness is not an open account for people who mock the life that made your kindness possible. Sometimes walking away from a table is not pride. Sometimes it is the first honest step back into your own life.